After 10 years, woman returns to her parents' house, and what she finds breaks her heart. Abigail Harrison felt her heart beating out of rhythm as she walked down the dirt road she knew so well. 10 years had passed since she left that small town in rural Pennsylvania, carrying only a suitcase and a hurt that seemed to have no end. The family mailbox was overflowing with letters and envelopes yellowed by time. Some pieces of mail had fallen to the ground and scattered through the tall grass growing all around. Abigail felt a tightness in her chest when she realized that no one had been collecting the mail for a very long time. "Oh my God, what happened here?" she murmured to herself, adjusting the suitcase strap over her shoulder. The house where she grew up looked different. The windows were boarded up with wooden planks, and the garden her mother had tended with so much care was now nothing but tall, dry weeds. The paint on the walls was peeling, and some shingles had fallen off the roof. Abigail approached the front door with hesitant steps. There, taped to the dusty glass, she found a note written by hand in a shaky script she recognized immediately. It was from her mother, Mrs. Eleanor. "Abby, if you ever come back, we've moved to the hospital. Room 12. We love you forever. Mom and Dad." Tears began to stream down Abigail's face before she even finished reading. Her legs went weak and she had to lean against the door to keep from falling. The note was faded, as if it had been there for a long time. "No, this can't be," she said out loud, her voice choked with emotion. "The hospital? Why are they in the hospital?" Abigail dropped her suitcase right there on the porch and ran toward the center of town. Asheville Memorial Hospital was only a few miles away, but every step felt like an eternity. As she ran, her mind flew back to the past, remembering the last conversation she'd had with her parents. She was only 25 when she decided to follow her dream of becoming a visual artist in New York City. Her parents, Mr. Thomas Harrison and Mrs. Eleanor Harrison, were simple people who worked in farming and couldn't understand how anyone could make a living painting pictures. "Abigail, that's not a real profession," her father had said on that fateful day. "You studied so hard you could work at the bank at the town hall. Why throw it all away on these fantasies?" "They're not fantasies, Dad. It's my dream. It's who I am," she had replied, her voice rising. "As long as you're caught up in this madness, don't count on us," her mother had said, hurt by her daughter's stubbornness. "When you decide to come to your senses, you know where to find us." Abigail had left home that very same day, promising herself she would only return once she was a recognized artist. Now, 10 years later, she ran desperately through the streets of her hometown, realizing how proud and foolish she had been. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing, Asheville Memorial Hospital was a small, simple building with only 2 stories. Abigail arrived breathless at the reception desk, where a middle-aged nurse watched her with curiosity. "Please," Abigail said, still trying to catch her breath, "I'm looking for my parents, Thomas Harrison and Eleanor Harrison." They left a note saying they were in room 12. The nurse, who wore a name tag reading Glenda, looked at Abigail with an expression that mixed surprise and compassion. "You're Abigail? Their daughter?" "Yes, that's me. How are they? What happened?" she asked desperately. Glenda sighed deeply before answering. "Sweetheart, your parents have been here for almost 4 months. They arrived in serious condition with malnutrition and dehydration. Mrs. Eleanor also has uncontrolled diabetes, and Mr. Thomas has had some heart problems." Abigail felt as if the ground had disappeared from beneath her feet. Malnourished? How? They were always hard workers, they always had enough to eat. "Well, that's a conversation you need to have with them," said Glenda, getting up. "Come on, I'll take you to their room, but be prepared. They're in pretty bad shape." As they walked through the hospital corridor, Abigail tried to process the information. Malnutrition, diabetes, heart problems. How had her parents, who had always been strong as oxen, ended up like this? "Nurse Glenda," said Abigail, stopping in the middle of the hallway, "did they mention anything about me? Do they know I tried to get in touch with them many times over the years?" Glenda stopped and turned to her with a confused expression. "Get in touch? Honey, they always said you never contacted them again, that you disappeared completely. That's not true, Abigail exclaimed. I sent letters, I tried calling many times. I even came here 3 years ago, but the house was empty and nobody knew where they were. How strange, Glenda murmured. They always said you never tried to reach out again. They arrived at the door of room 12. Glenda knocked lightly before entering. Mrs. Eleanor, Mr. Thomas, look who came to visit you. Abigail walked into the room and had to steady herself against the wall to keep from falling. The two elderly people lying in the narrow hospital beds were almost unrecognizable. Her father, who had always been a strong, sturdy man, now looked like a rail. Her mother, who once had glossy black hair, was now grey and far too thin. Abby, Eleanor whispered, trying to sit up in bed. You came back. Mr. Thomas Harrison looked at his daughter and immediately turned away, as if he felt ashamed. His trembling hands pulled the sheet up, trying to cover himself better. Mom, said Abigail, approaching the bed with tears streaming down her face. Dad, what happened to you two? Sweetheart, said Eleanor, reaching out to touch Abigail's face. You've grown so much, you're so beautiful. Mom, what happened? Why are you like this? Thomas finally looked at his daughter, and Abigail could see tears in his eyes. Abigail, we lost everything, he said in a weak voice. The property, the house, everything. What do you mean you lost everything? The land was yours, it was Grandpa's inheritance. It was the debts, sweetheart, Eleanor explained. First there was the drought that destroyed the crops 2 years in a row. Then your mother got sick and needed expensive treatment. We had to take out loan after loan. The bank took everything, Thomas continued. We held on as long as we could, hoping you'd come back to inherit something. But in the end we couldn't. Abigail sat down on the chair between the two beds, trying to process everything she was hearing. But you could have told me. I would have come back. I would have helped. How, sweetheart? Asked Eleanor. You made it very clear you didn't want anything to do with us anymore. That's not true, Mom. I sent letters. I tried calling. Her parents exchanged a confused look. Abigail, said Thomas, we never received any letter from you. Ever since you left, we never heard from you again. A nurse who was in the room approached Abigail. Excuse me, she said. I'm Nurse Brenda. I've been caring for your parents for 3 months. Can I speak with you outside for a moment? Abigail kissed her parents' foreheads and stepped out with the nurse. Your name is Abigail Harrison, correct? Yes. And you lived in New York City? That's right. Brenda sighed. Look, I need to tell you something that might explain a lot. Your parents lost their house more than 5 years ago. Since then, they've lived in several different places, first with some distant relatives, then in a cheap boarding house, and in the end, they were living in a little back room behind Old Man Arthur's place, the man who owns the bar. Abigail felt the world spin. 5 years. But when I came here 3 years ago... Exactly. 3 years ago, they no longer lived in your house. The bank had sold the property to a family from out of town. But I sent letters to the old address. The letters probably came back to the post office, and they never knew you tried to contact them. Abigail leaned against the hallway wall, feeling lost. All those years, she had thought her parents were too proud to forgive her, and they, in turn, thought she had abandoned them forever. Nurse Brenda, said Abigail, what is their real condition? Are they going to recover? Look, physically they're stable. The problem is they no longer want to fight. They've lost the will to live. Until you showed up today, they spent their days saying there was no point in going on. And what about the hospital costs? Brenda lowered her voice. They don't have health insurance and can't afford to pay. The hospital is covering the basic costs, but it can't do that forever. If there's no decision soon, they'll have to be transferred to a public nursing home. A nursing home? Exclaimed Abigail. No, that can't happen. I know it's hard, but that's the reality. Unless someone in the family takes on their financial responsibility. Abigail returned to her parents' room with her mind racing. She had some savings, but she didn't know if they would be enough to cover prolonged medical treatment. Dad, Mom, she said, sitting back down between the two beds, I came to get you. I'm going to take care of you from now on. Sweetheart, said Mr. Harrison, you can't throw your life away because of us. We're old. We've already lived our lives. Don't say that, said Abigail, taking her mother's hand. You're all I have in the world. These 10 years away from you were the worst of my life." "And how was your life in New York City?" asked Eleanor. "Did you manage to fulfill your dream of being an artist?" Abigail hesitated. The truth was that she had struggled a great deal to establish herself as an artist. In the early years, she went without, working several jobs just to survive. Only in the last 3 years had she managed to sell some paintings and earn some money from her art. "It was hard, but I made it. I have a small studio now, and I sell my work to collectors and galleries." "We're proud of you," said Mr. Harrison, squeezing his daughter's hand. "You followed your heart and it worked out." "Dad, I want you both to get out of here. I'm going to rent a house in town for the 3 of us. I'm going to take care of you until you're better again." Eleanor began to cry. "Sweetheart, you don't understand. We have nothing left. We're a burden to you. You will never be a burden. I love you." That night, Abigail stayed in the hospital beside her parents. She slept in an uncomfortable chair, but she didn't mind. She was happy to be near them again. The following morning, she spoke with Dr. Hayes, the doctor in charge of her parents. "Mrs. Harrison," he said. She had a degree in fine arts, but he addressed her with respect. "Your parents are stable, but they need constant care. Mrs. Eleanor needs to manage her diabetes with daily medication and a strict diet, and Mr. Harrison needs regular cardiac monitoring." "Doctor, how much do the medications and monthly medical care cost on average?" Dr. Hayes did some calculations. "Well, considering appointments, tests, and medications, it would be around $2,000 a month." Abigail did the math in her head. Her savings would last about 6 months if she could find a source of income in town. "Doctor, how much longer do they need to stay here in the hospital? If they're discharged today and are well cared for at home, they can fully recover in a few months. Then that's what we're going to do." Abigail spent the day looking for a house to rent in town. The real estate agent, Mr. Sullivan, a friendly gentleman who had known the entire Harrison family, showed her several options. "Abigail," he said, as they visited a small, simple house downtown, "I knew your parents my whole life. They're good people. We were all sad when we heard they had lost the land." "How exactly did that happen, Mr. Sullivan?" "Well, dear, it was a string of bad luck. First came that terrible drought that lasted 2 years. The crops died and they lost all their income. Then your mother was diagnosed with diabetes and needed expensive treatment. And they never asked anyone for help. Your father was always too proud. He took out a bank loan instead of asking the neighbors for help. Before he knew it, the debt had snowballed. And the property? The bank took 3 years to seize it because your father always managed to pay at least part of the installment. But in the end, there was no way around it." Mr. Sullivan stopped walking and looked at Abigail. "Can I ask you something? Why did you never come back in all those years? Your parents suffered a great deal from your absence." Abigail felt the weight of guilt again. "I tried to get in touch several times, but they no longer lived at the house. And back then I was young and proud. I thought they had to accept me the way I was, with my dreams and everything." "I understand. Pride is a dangerous thing, isn't it? It tears families apart. They rented the little house for $800 a month. It was simple, but clean and comfortable. It had 2 small bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom. Abigail thought it would be perfect for them to start a new life together. In the afternoon, she went back to the hospital to give her parents the news. "I rented a house for us. Tomorrow you're being discharged and we're going to start all over again." "Abigail," her mother said, "are you sure? There's still time for you to go back to New York City and continue your life. My life is here with you. It took me 10 years to understand that." Thomas was quieter than usual. Abigail noticed he seemed worried about something. "Dad, what's wrong? Aren't you happy?" "Honey, I'm very happy. But I feel like a failure. I was supposed to take care of the family, and in the end, it's my daughter taking care of me." "Dad, that's what family is. Sometimes some of us take care of others. Sometimes the roles reverse. What matters is that we love each other." That night, Abigail went to get her things from the inn where she was staying and came across an envelope someone had left under her door. Inside was a handwritten letter. Abigail, my name is Rose. I was your parents' neighbor. I heard you were back and wanted to tell you something you might not know. Your parents talked about you every day. Your father went to the city library every week to search for your name online and see if you were doing well. They followed your entire professional career in New York City. They kept newspaper clippings about your exhibitions. They always knew you had become a recognized artist and were always proud of you, even while suffering from the distance. Rose Mitchell. Abigail had to sit down on the bed to keep from falling. Her parents had followed her career all those years. How was that possible? The next morning, she arrived early at the hospital with this new information. "Dad, Mum," she said, "Mrs. Rose sent me a letter. Is it true that you followed my career on the internet?" Eleanor and Thomas looked at each other and smiled for the first time since Abigail had arrived. "Sweetheart," Eleanor said, "we never stopped worrying about you. Every week we went to the library to see if there was any news about you online." "We have an album full of articles about you," Thomas said. "It was at Old Man Arthur's house where we were staying. We really want you to see it." "You always knew I had become an artist." "Of course we knew," Eleanor said. "We were proud every time we saw your name in the paper or online." "But why did you never try to find me?" "Sweetheart," said Mr. Harrison, "you had made it clear that you wanted to live your life without us. We didn't want to get in the way of your career." Abigail realized how proud they had all been and how that had almost destroyed the family. "We are never going to let pride tear us apart again," she said, embracing them both. After all the discharge papers were signed, Abigail took her parents to their new home. They were moved to see that she had bought basic furniture and decorated everything with flowers. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," said Mrs. Harrison, looking around. "Now I'm going to get your album from Old Man Arthur's house." Abigail went to the house where her parents had lived before being hospitalized. Old Man Arthur, a kind man around 60 years old, received her warmly. "Abigail, how happy we were when we heard you were back. Your parents are special people." "Old Man Arthur, did they leave some things here?" "Of course. Everything is stored in the little back room. Come with me." He led her to a small room in the back of the house. There were some bags with clothes and personal belongings of her parents, among them a photo album. Abigail opened the album and couldn't hold back her tears. There were dozens of printed articles about her art exhibitions, photos of her paintings published in magazines, and even an interview she had given to a local newspaper in New York City. "They saw all of this?" "Every week," confirmed Old Man Arthur. "Mr. Harrison would come here to show me the news about you. He would say, 'Look at this, Arthur, my daughter is becoming famous.' And they never talked about coming to find me. Your father always said he didn't want to bother you, that you were too busy with success to remember two old farmers." Abigail took the album back home and showed her parents what she had found. "You collected all of this about me?" "It was our only way of being part of your life," said Mrs. Harrison. "Look here," said Mr. Harrison, pointing at a photo. "This painting you did looks like the sunflower field we had on our property." Abigail looked at the photo and remembered. Indeed, that painting had been inspired by a childhood memory, running through the sunflower field on her parents' farm. "Dad, many of my paintings were inspired by our life here, by the memories of the farm, of the mornings in the field, of the afternoons on the porch." "Really?" asked Mrs. Harrison. "I never stopped missing this place. I never stopped loving you." In the following days, Abigail devoted herself entirely to caring for her parents. She took them to their medical appointments, managed their medication, and cooked healthy meals the doctor had recommended. But she knew she needed to find a source of income. Her savings were running out quickly, and the medical expenses were constant. "Abigail," said her father one morning, "you need to go back to New York City. You can't put your career on hold because of us." "Dad, I already told you I'm not leaving you. I'll find a way to work from here." "But how? There's no art market here." Abigail had thought about that. Asheville was a tourist town, known for its flower fields and colonial architecture. Maybe there was an opportunity there. She decided to visit some hotels and inns in town to see if there was interest in local artistic decor. "Good morning," she said to the front desk clerk at Fairview Manor Inn. "I'd like to speak with the manager about an art project." The manager, Mr. Garrett Wilson, received her in his office. "How can I help you?" "I'm a visual artist and I've just moved to town. I'd like to propose a decor project featuring local art for the hotel. What kind of art? Paintings that capture the natural beauty of the region. Flower fields, rural landscapes, scenes from everyday town life. Art that connects guests with the local culture. Garrett Wilson seemed interested. That's an interesting idea. Could you show me some of your work? Abigail had brought some photos of her paintings on her phone. When he saw the images, his eyes lit up. What beautiful work! That painting of the sunflowers is incredible. Thank you. It was inspired by the fields around here. Look, Abigail, I'll be honest. We're renovating the hotel and we're looking for exactly this, local art that celebrates our region. How much would you charge to create a series of paintings for us? Abigail did some quick calculations. It depends on how many paintings you want and the size. How about 15 medium-sized paintings to decorate the rooms and common areas? It would be $15,000 for the complete project. Deal, said Garrett Wilson, extending his hand. When can you start? Abigail floated out of the hotel on cloud nine. $15,000 would be enough to support the family for several months and still allow her to buy materials to keep painting. When she got home, she found her parents talking on the porch. I did it, she shouted. I got a job. What do you mean, sweetheart? Asked Eleanor. I'm going to paint paintings for the Fairview Manor Inn, 15 paintings about our region. Thomas stood up from his chair, more excited than she had seen him since she'd arrived. Abigail, this is wonderful. You'll be able to work with art right here. And that's not all. I have other ideas. I can offer the same service to other lodges, restaurants, and even private homes. My daughter has become a businesswoman, said Eleanor, laughing. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like, and especially subscribe to the channel. That helps us a lot who are just starting out, now continuing. Abigail started working on the paintings at home, turning the guest room into a small studio. Her parents loved watching her paint and often gave suggestions about the landscapes. Sweetheart, her father said one day, watching her paint a sunflower field, do you remember when you were little and said you were going to paint our farm? I do remember, Dad. Back then I thought it was nonsense. Now I see how wrong I was. Dad, you weren't wrong. You just wanted what was best for me, a more secure life. But you were right about following your dreams. And look at that. In the end, your dreams came back home. While Abigail painted, she and her parents talked about the past, the present, and the future. They began to heal not just physically but emotionally as well. Eleanor improved a lot with her diabetes medication and controlled diet. Thomas was also stronger, and his heart had stabilized. Dr. Hayes was impressed with their recovery. Abigail, he said during a checkup, your parents are recovering very well. What are you all doing at home? We're talking a lot, Doctor. I think they needed love and attention just as much as medication. That's exactly it. The emotional state has a big influence on physical recovery. 2 weeks later, Abigail delivered the 15 paintings to the hotel. The result was so good that Garrett Wilson called her again. Abigail, the guests are loving the paintings. We've already had requests from people wanting to buy your work. Really? And that's not all. The Green Valley Lodge and the Rustic Hearth Restaurant want to talk to you about similar projects. Abigail couldn't believe it. In just a few weeks, she had created a demand for local art in town. At home, she told her parents the news. Sweetheart, said Thomas, it seems like you brought luck to our town. There's never been this much artistic activity around here. Dad, I have a crazy idea. Tell me, sweetheart, what if we organized a local art fair? Not just my work, but work from other artists in the region. It could attract tourists and boost the town's economy. Eleanor clapped her hands. What a beautiful idea. The central square would be perfect for this. I'll talk to the mayor, said Abigail, excited. The next day, Abigail went to City Hall to speak with Mayor Grant Crawford, a friendly man of about 50, who knew the Harrison family well. Abigail, how are your parents? They're recovering well, thank you, Mayor. And how is your return to the city going? Actually, that's what I came to talk about. I have a proposal. Abigail explained her idea for the local art fair. "That's interesting," said the mayor. "But do you think we have enough artists in the city?" "I'm sure we do. We just need to give them a chance to show what they can do." "And how would it be organized?" "We could do it once a month in the central square. Each artist would pay a symbolic fee to participate, and the city could help with promotion." The mayor was thoughtful for a few moments. "You know what, Abigail? Let's try it. Our city needs new cultural activities." "Really?" she asked, excited. "Really? You can count on the city's support." Abigail left City Hall euphoric. She ran home to tell her parents. "I did it! The mayor approved the art fair." "How wonderful, dear," said Eleanor. "When will the first one be?" "He said we can do it next month." Mr. Harrison was beaming. "Abigail, you didn't just come back home. You're transforming our city." "Dad, the truth is Asheville always had potential. It just needed someone to take the first step." In the following days, Abigail went around town looking for local artists. She discovered there was far more hidden talent than she had imagined. She met Mrs. Bloom, the florist, a 70-year-old woman who made artistic flower arrangements. She met Caleb James, a 20-year-old young man who carved wood. She met Dorothy, a 40-year-old woman who made crafts from recycled materials. "Would you like to participate in an art fair?" she asked each of them. Everyone was excited about the idea. "Abigail," said Mrs. Bloom, the florist, "I never thought my arrangements could be considered art." "Of course they're art, Mrs. Bloom. They're beautiful and unique. But who's going to want to buy them?" "We'll find out together." The first fair was scheduled for a Saturday in the following month. Abigail was nervous but confident. "What if nobody shows up?" asked Eleanor. "People will show up, Mum. I have faith." On the day of the fair, Abigail woke up early to help the artists set up their booths in the central square. There were 10 artists in total, each with their own unique creations. By 9 in the morning, the fair was ready. Abigail looked around, proud of what they had accomplished in such a short time. "Now we just wait," she said to Caleb James. It didn't take long for the first people to show up. Tourists staying at the city's hotels, curious locals, and even people from neighboring towns who had seen the promotion on social media. By 10 in the morning, the square was bustling, people buying, chatting with the artists, taking photos. "Abigail!" shouted Garrett Wilson from the hotel. "What a success! Mrs. Bloom, the florist, sold all her arrangements in 2 hours. Caleb James received commissions for sculptures. Dorothy made contacts to supply crafts to shops in the region. And Abigail. She sold 8 paintings, more than she expected." "Sweetheart," said Mr. Harrison, who had gone to the fair with Eleanor. "You did something beautiful here." "We did it, Dad. This is ours." At the end of the day, the artists gathered to evaluate the results. "Abigail," said Mrs. Bloom, the florist, "thank you for believing in us." "Mrs. Bloom, thank you all for coming on this adventure with me." Caleb James raised his hand. "Everyone, how about we do this every month?" Everyone agreed enthusiastically. The art fair became a monthly event the city looked forward to. With each edition, more artists appeared, more tourists came, and the local economy benefited. 3 months after the first fair, Abigail received an unexpected visit. An elegant woman, about 50 years old, knocked on her door. "Hello, are you Abigail Harrison?" "Yes, I am." "My name is Evelyn Sterling. I'm an art curator at the Chicago Contemporary Art Space. I came to see your work." Abigail couldn't believe it. A curator from one of the most important galleries in Pennsylvania had come all the way to Asheville to see her. "How did you find out about my work?" "Through the art fair's social media. Your work really caught my attention. I'd like to propose a solo exhibition at the gallery." Abigail had to steady herself against the door. "A solo exhibition?" "Exactly. 20 of your paintings about rural American life. It would be a great success." "I don't know what to say." "Think it over carefully. It would be an opportunity to showcase your work nationally." After Evelyn left, Abigail was torn. It was an incredible opportunity, but it would mean spending time away from her parents again. "Dad, Mom," she said, telling them about the proposal. "What do you think?" "Sweetheart," said Thomas, "you can't pass up an opportunity like this because of us." but I don't want to leave you two alone." "Abigail," said Eleanor, "we're doing fine now, and it's only for a few weeks to prepare the exhibition, right? Are you sure?" "Absolutely," and they said in unison. Abigail accepted the gallery's proposal. She spent 3 weeks in Chicago preparing the exhibition, but came home every weekend. The exhibition was a success. Art critics praised her work and every single painting was sold. But the most important thing for Abigail wasn't the professional success. It was what she found when she came home. Her parents had completely recovered. Thomas had lost his frail appearance and was once again the strong man she remembered. Eleanor was radiant, her diabetes under control and full of energy. "How are you two?" she asked, hugging them both. "We're doing great, sweetheart," said Eleanor, "and we're so proud of you." "The Chicago newspaper covered your exhibition," said Thomas, showing a clipping. "Rural artist conquers the big city." "Dad, that only happened because you supported me." "Abigail," said Thomas, "I want to apologize." "For what, Dad?" "For not believing in your dreams from the start. For being stubborn and proud." "Dad, we were all proud. What matters is that we found our way back to each other in the end." Eleanor approached them. "Sweetheart, we want to tell you something." "What is it, Mum?" "We've decided to stay in town for good. We like the house, we like life here, and we want to be close to you." "Are you sure? Don't you miss country life?" "Sweetheart," said Thomas, "the country life we loved no longer exists. Our land belongs to others now, but we've built a new life here with you, and we're happy." 6 months later, Abigail opened her own art gallery in Asheville, a space dedicated to promoting local and regional artists. The monthly fair had grown so much that it became the city's main tourist attraction. Hotels were packed on fair weekends, restaurants had lines out the door, and new businesses had sprung up to meet the demand. "Sweetheart," said Eleanor one morning, "you've transformed our town." "We transformed it, Mum. I didn't do anything alone." Thomas was reading the local newspaper on the porch. "Look at this," he said, "a story about the economic impact of the art fair. It says the town's tourist numbers have gone up by 40%. "That's incredible, Dad." "And look at the headline, Asheville, the new capital of Pennsylvania's rural art." Abigail smiled. Who would have thought that coming home would lead her to the recognition she had always dreamed of? "You know what's the funniest part?" she said. "What?" her parents asked. "I spent 10 years trying to make it big in the city, and in the end it was right here in the small town where I was born that everything came together." "Sometimes what we look for far away is right in front of us," said Eleanor. "That's true, Mum. You were always here, waiting for me." That afternoon, the three of them walked to where the old family property used to be. The land was now a soybean field, fenced off by an agribusiness company. "Do you miss this place?" asked Abigail. "A little," admitted Mr. Harrison. "But not in a sad way. It's a good kind of longing, the kind you feel for memories." "Dad, I have an idea." "What?" "What if we bought a small farm on the outskirts of town? Nothing too big, just a place where you two could plant a little vegetable garden, and I could have a bigger studio." Mr. Harrison's eyes lit up. "Would you really do that, honey?" "Of course I would. With the money from my painting sales, we can get a nice piece of land." "But we don't want you spending your savings on us," said Eleanor. "Mom, it wouldn't be spending. It would be investing in our happiness." 2 weeks later, they found the perfect property. 5 acres of flat land with a simple house, located just 10 minutes from downtown. "This is it." "This," said Abigail as soon as she saw the place. "This is our new home." Mr. Harrison looked around, imagining the possibilities. "We could plant vegetables over there, put in an orchard here, and leave that space for your studio," he said, pointing to different areas. "And we could host the tourists from the fair here too," suggested Eleanor. "Show them what real country life is like." "What a wonderful idea, Mum. Artistic rural tourism." They bought the property and started renovating the house. Abigail hired local workers and insisted that everything be done with materials from the region. While the house was being renovated, they kept living in town. Abigail's gallery was getting busier and busier, and she had hired 2 assistants to help with sales. "Abigail," said Mrs. Bloom the florist one morning, "you've changed the lives of all us artists." "Mrs. Bloom, you all changed my life too. Today I'm happier than I've ever been. And why do you think that is? Abigail thought for a moment. Because I finally understood that success isn't just professional, it's being at peace with yourself and with the people we love. How beautiful, said Mrs. Bloom, moved. 3 months later, the farmhouse was ready. It was perfect. A spacious porch, a big kitchen, 3 bedrooms, and a roomy studio for Abigail to work in. "We're home," said Mr. Harrison, walking into the new house carrying a suitcase. "Our home," corrected Eleanor. "For real this time." Abigail was finishing organizing her studio when she found something that moved her. At the bottom of a box of supplies was a drawing she had made as a child. It was her parents' farmhouse, with the whole family gathered on the porch. "Look what I found," she said, showing them the drawing. "Oh my goodness!" exclaimed Eleanor. "Do you remember drawing that?" "Vaguely. I must have been about 8 years old." Mr. Harrison took the drawing and looked at it fondly. "Do you know what's most remarkable?" he said. "You drew our family together, and today we're here together again." "That's true, Dad. It took 30 years, but we made it." Abigail framed the drawing and hung it on the living room wall, right next to a recent family photo. "Past and present," she said, "joined forever." On the first weekend in the new house, they had their first visit from tourists interested in rural tourism, a couple from New York City who had discovered Abigail's work through the gallery. "What a beautiful place," said the woman. "It's exactly how we imagined country life would be." "Have you lived here long?" asked the man. "We were born in this region," explained Mr. Harrison. "My daughter left for a few years, but she came back home. And now we're happier than ever," Eleanor added. The couple bought 3 of Abigail's paintings and said they would return for a long weekend in the future. "Sweetheart," Mr. Harrison said after the visitors had left, "it looks like our farm is going to become a tourist attraction. Dad, what do you think about making this official? We could offer countryside lodging, art workshops, and farm life experiences." "That would be wonderful," said Eleanor. "I've always dreamed of welcoming people into our home." "Then let's make this our family project." They spent the following months developing the Rural Tourism Project. They built a small cottage for guests, organized the yard to welcome visitors, and created an experience package that included lodging, painting workshops, nature walks around the property, and home-cooked meals. The first guest family arrived on a Saturday in May. They were the Mitchells, a family with 2 teenage children from Washington, D.C. "What an incredible place," said Mrs. Mitchell. "This is exactly what we needed to escape the city rush." The teenagers, who were initially bored by the lack of strong internet, soon took an interest in the activities. The daughter signed up for the painting workshop with Abigail, and the son helped Mr. Harrison in the vegetable garden. "Aunt Abby," said the 15-year-old girl, "did you always know you wanted to be an artist?" "Since I was a little girl, but it took me a while to understand that my place was here, close to my family. My parents want me to go to medical school, but I like literature more. What do you think you should do?" "Talk to them. Explain my dreams." "Exactly, but always with respect and care, listening to what they have to say too." "Did you argue with your parents?" "I did, and I stayed away from them for 10 years. It was the worst time of my life." "Wow. And how did you make up?" "Love. In the end, love always wins over pride." By the end of the weekend, the Mitchell family was transformed. The parents more relaxed, the kids more connected to nature and to each other. "Abigail," said Mr. Mitchell, "thank you for having us. This was exactly what our family needed." "It was a pleasure. Come back any time." "We definitely will, and we'll recommend it to our friends." After the Mitchells left, the Harrison family gathered on the porch to talk about the experience. "How was it for you?" Abigail asked. "I loved it," said Eleanor. "It had been a while since I cooked for a family. I felt useful." "And I loved talking to the boy about farming," said Mr. Harrison. "He asked some interesting questions about organic planting." "Dad, what do you think about offering a sustainable agriculture course for guests?" "That would be great. I have so much knowledge to share." "And I could teach country cooking," Eleanor suggested. "Perfect. Everyone contributes with what they do best. In the following months, the rural tourism project grew organically. They hosted families from all over the country, and everyone left enchanted by the experience. Abigail kept painting and selling her pieces, but now she saw her art as part of a bigger life project. It was no longer just about individual success, but about building something meaningful with her family. "Sweetheart," Mr. Harrison said one morning, "have you thought about how much our lives have changed in a year?" "I think about it every day, Dad. A year ago, we were in the hospital, sick and hopeless. Today, here we are, strong, fulfilled, welcoming people from all over the country." "And it all started when you came home," said Eleanor. "Actually, it all started when you forgave me, and I learned to forgive myself." "Abigail, can I confess something?" said Mr. Harrison. "Of course, Dad. When you left 10 years ago, I was so angry. I thought it was ingratitude. And it was, Dad. I was young and ungrateful indeed. But today I understand that you needed to leave to grow, to find yourself, and to come back as the person you are today." "What do you mean?" "If you hadn't left, you never would have become an artist. And if you weren't an artist, you wouldn't have brought all this transformation to our town." Eleanor agreed. "Sometimes God has plans we don't understand at the time, dear, don't you think?" "That's true, Mom. Today I see that everything had a purpose." That afternoon, Abigail was painting in her studio when she received an unexpected phone call. "Abigail Harrison?" "Yes. This is Sarah Foster from the National Broadcasting Network. We're doing a documentary about artists who transformed their communities. We'd like to include your story." Abigail almost dropped her paintbrush. "A national documentary?" "Exactly. Your story caught our attention. An artist who came back home and created a cultural movement in a small town." I would be deeply honored. Can our crew come out next week for the filming?" "Of course." Abigail hung up the phone and ran to tell her parents. "A documentary on national television," she shouted, "about our story." Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Eleanor were speechless. "Abigail," Mr. Thomas finally said, "our town is going to be on television for the whole country to see." "Yes, Dad, and you two as well." "Oh my goodness," said Mrs. Eleanor. "I'm going to have to buy new clothes." They laughed together, imagining the impact this would have. The following week, the television crew arrived in town. There were 5 of them: the director, the producer, the camera operator, the sound technician, and the assistant. "Wow," said the director, looking around. "What a perfect place to film." They shot for 3 days. They interviewed Abigail, her parents, other artists from the fair, the mayor, innkeepers, and even tourists who were visiting the area. "Abigail," said the producer during a break, "your story is truly moving. The family reconciliation, the town's transformation, the artistic success. It has all the elements of an inspiring story. Thank you. But what matters most to me isn't the success. It's being here with my family. That's exactly what makes your story special." The documentary aired 2 months later. It was called Coming Home: The Art That Transforms. It drew a large audience and national attention. On the night it aired, the residents of Asheville gathered in the central square to watch it together, on a giant screen that the town hall had set up. "Look, there she is," a child shouted when Abigail appeared on screen. "It's Aunt Abby." The whole town cheered when the documentary showed footage of the art fair and tourists visiting the region. "Our town is on television," said Mrs. Bloom, the florist, overcome with emotion. At the end of the documentary, there was an interview with Abigail on the porch of the farmhouse, with her parents by her side. "It took me 10 years to understand that true success isn't conquering the world, but finding peace of mind. Today I know I'm in the right place with the right people, doing what I love. There's no greater achievement than that." The entire square applauded. People were weeping with emotion. "Abigail," the mayor shouted, "you are the pride of our town." After the screening, there was a celebration in the square. Music, food, and pure joy. Abigail was beaming, surrounded by the friends and neighbors who had supported her journey. "How do you feel?" a local journalist asked. "Grateful. So deeply grateful. For having a family, for having come back home, for having found my place in the world." Mr. Thomas approached his daughter. Sweetheart, I want to say something. Go ahead, Dad. When you were little, I dreamed you would grow up to be someone important. Today, I know that dream came true, but in a far better way than I ever imagined. Why, Dad? Because you became someone important, not just professionally, but as a human being. You're generous, caring, and you've brought happiness to so many people. Abigail hugged her father, deeply moved. Dad, I only learned that because you taught me. You gave me values even when I was too rebellious to understand. Eleanor joined the embrace. Now we're a complete family again, she said. Forever, Mom. Forever. In the months following the documentary, Asheville received even more tourists. The Harrison family's rural tourism project became famous, and they had to expand to meet the demand. They built 2 more guest cabins and hired local staff to help. The farm became a model of sustainable, family-oriented tourism. Abigail, said Garrett Wilson from the hotel at a tourism association meeting, you turned our town into a national destination. We turned it, she corrected. All of us together. That's true. But you were the spark that started it all. Mayor Grant Crawford was also at the meeting. Everyone, he said, our town's tourism numbers have tripled in the last year, and most importantly, the money is circulating in the local economy. What do you mean? Asked Dorothy, the artisan. Tourists don't just come for the fair or for Abigail's farm. They stay in the hotels, eat at the restaurants, shop at the markets, visit other attractions. Everyone is benefiting. Abigail was happy to know that her initiative had benefited the whole community. At the end of the year, she organized Asheville's first Rural Art Week. A whole week of artistic events, exhibitions, workshops, lectures, regional music shows and art contests. Artists from various parts of the state came to participate. The town was bustling, and the event was considered a great success. Daughter, said Thomas on the last day of the week, you created something much bigger than you imagined. Dad, sometimes I'm afraid it's too big. What if we can't sustain all of this? Abigail, you've already built the foundations. Now, the community itself will sustain the movement. What do you mean? Look around. How many people now depend on cultural tourism to make a living? How many artists discovered their talent? How many young people were inspired by you? This won't end because it's become a necessity for the town. Eleanor agreed. And besides, sweetheart, you're not alone. We're here to support you, and the whole community too. Abigail looked around the central square, where Art Week was still happening. Children taking part in painting workshops, seniors selling handicrafts, young people playing regional music, tourist families photographing everything. You're right, she said. This already has a life of its own. That night, the 3 of them sat on the farm's porch to relax after an intense week. You know what I'm most proud of? Asked Eleanor. What, Mom? Of how you included everyone. You didn't keep the success just for yourself. Mum, success that isn't shared isn't real success. Thomas was watching the stars. Abigail, do you remember when you were little and said you wanted to paint the stars? I vaguely remember, Dad. You said you wanted to paint pictures that would make people happy, like the stars made you happy. And did I? You did, and so much more. You painted happiness, not just on the canvases, but into people's lives. Abigail felt a deep emotion. She finally understood the true meaning of her art and her life. Dad, Mom, can I confess something? Of course, sweetheart. During all those years in New York City, I was never truly happy. There were moments of joy when I sold a painting, or when someone praised my work, but it wasn't complete happiness. And today? Asked Eleanor. Today I wake up happy every day. Happy to be with you, happy to make art, happy to live in a community that I helped to transform. Do you know why it's different? Asked Thomas. Why, Dad? Because before you were chasing after something. Today you're living something. What a beautiful difference, Dad. They remained silent for a moment, enjoying the tranquility of the country night. Abigail, said Eleanor, have you ever thought about the future, about what you still want to do? I have several plans, Mom. I want to expand the rural tourism project, create an art school in town, maybe write a book about our experience. A book? Asked Mr. Harrison, intrigued. About family reconciliation, about how art can transform communities, about how to find true success. That would be a beautiful book, said Eleanor. But it wouldn't be just my story. It would be our story, our families and our towns. We're in, said Mr. Harrison, laughing. Then it's settled. Next year I'll start writing. 6 months later, Abigail began writing the book. Every afternoon, after work at the studio, she would sit on the porch with a notebook and write about the family's journey. Her parents helped by recalling details, correcting dates, and suggesting important episodes to include. "Sweetheart," Mr. Harrison said one afternoon, "don't forget to mention the scrapbook we kept about you." And how Nurse Brenda was important in helping us discover that we had lost each other over a misunderstanding, Eleanor reminded her. "I'll include everything, every detail matters." The book took a year to finish. Abigail decided to call it The Way Back, a story of reconciliation and transformation. She sent the manuscript to several publishers, and to her surprise, 3 of them were interested in publishing it. "Abigail," said the editor she chose during a phone call, "your story has all the makings of a bestseller. Family reconciliation is a theme that touches many people. What matters most to me isn't selling lots of books, but inspiring other families to reconcile. It's exactly that authenticity that makes your story so powerful." The book was launched at a special event in the central square of Asheville. Hundreds of people attended, including journalists from several cities and even some television programs. Abigail asked a journalist during the press conference, "What is the main message of your book?" That it's never too late to apologize, to forgive, and to start over, and that sometimes what we look for far away is right beside us. And what would you say to families going through similar situations? That pride is love's greatest enemy, and that talking always solves more than pulling away. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison were also interviewed. "How do you feel seeing your family's story become a book?" asked the journalist. "Proud," Mr. Harrison answered, "but mostly grateful. Grateful that we had the opportunity to reconcile and live this second chance together." "And what was the most difficult moment in this whole story?" asked the journalist. "When we found out we spent years misunderstanding each other," Eleanor replied. "That both sides were trying to reach out, but fate wouldn't allow it." "And the happiest?" "The day Abigail came home," they both said at the same time. "The book became a national success. Within 3 months, it was on the bestseller list, and international publishers began showing interest in translation rights. But for Abigail, the greatest success wasn't the sales. It was the letters she received from readers telling her how the book had inspired family reconciliations. "Look at this letter," she said to her parents one morning. "A woman from Texas says the book inspired her to reach out to her sister, whom she hadn't seen in 15 years, because of a fight over an inheritance." "How wonderful," said Eleanor. "And this one," Abigail continued, "a father from New York City who was estranged from his son because of his sexuality. He says the book made him understand that love is more important than any difference." "Wow, sweetheart," said Mr. Harrison. "You're doing so much good for so many families." "We are doing it, Dad. Our story belongs to all of us. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. 2 years after the book was released, Abigail received an unexpected invitation to speak at the biggest family therapy conference in the United States. "Abigail," said the event organizer, "we want you to tell your story to therapists from all over the country. Your story can really help professionals who work with family reconciliation." "But I'm not a therapist," Abigail replied. "Exactly. You're someone who lived through the process firsthand. Your perspective is incredibly valuable." Abigail accepted the invitation. On the day of the talk, the auditorium was packed with over 1,000 therapists. "When I left my parents' house 15 years ago," she began, "I was sure I was doing the right thing. I was young, determined, and thought I knew everything about life." The audience was in absolute silence, hanging on every word. "Today I understand that youth and wisdom are 2 very different things. I had energy and dreams, but I lacked the maturity to handle family differences with love." She told the whole story, the initial fight, the years of separation, the misunderstanding with the letters, the reunion at the hospital, and the gradual reconciliation. "The first lesson I learned," she said, "is that communication is everything. Many family conflicts could be avoided or resolved quickly if people talked more and judged less." A therapist raised his hand. "Abigail, in your experience, what was the key moment of reconciliation?" "When we all decided to stop trying to prove who was right or wrong and started focusing on what actually mattered, the love we felt for one another." "And how did you manage to do that?" "Vulnerability. My father apologized for not supporting my dreams. My mother admitted she had been too proud, and I acknowledged that I had been rebellious and insensitive. When everyone let their guard down, the love was able to flow again." Another therapist asked a question: "What advice would you give to families going through similar conflicts?" Abigail thought for a moment. "First, there's always time to apologize and start over, no matter how much time has passed. Second, wounded pride heals, but relationships lost to pride sometimes don't. Third, each side needs to try to understand the other's perspective, even if they don't agree. And for parents specifically, understand that children need to spread their wings to discover who they are. That's not personal rejection, it's natural growth. And support their dreams, even if you don't fully understand them. And for the children, remember that parents are also imperfect human beings, doing the best they can with the information and experiences they have. A little patience and compassion can prevent a lot of heartache." The talk was very well received. Several therapists approached her afterward to share similar cases they were working on. "Abigail," said one psychologist, "your story gave me new ideas for working with a family I'm seeing. Thank you for sharing so honestly." "It was my pleasure. If our experience can help other families, then all the suffering we went through had a greater purpose." When she got home, Abigail told her parents about the experience. "How did it go, sweetheart?" asked Eleanor. "It was moving, seeing that our story can help professionals take better care of other families." "Did you speak well of us?" Mr. Harrison joked. "I told the truth about us, that we're imperfect, but that love was stronger than pride." "That's a good way to put it," said Eleanor, laughing. That night, they sat out on the porch as they always did. It was a ritual they had created. Every evening, after dinner, they would gather on the porch to talk about the day and simply be together. "You know what I'm most proud of?" Abigail asked. "What?" her parents asked. "How our relationship improved after the reconciliation. Today we talk about everything, respect each other's opinions, and we know how to express love without fear." "That's true," Thomas agreed. "Before the separation, I was more authoritarian and didn't listen much. Today, I appreciate your opinions and ideas. And I was more closed off to new things," Eleanor admitted. "Now I enjoy learning about art, about tourism, about all those things you brought into our lives." "You also taught me a lot," Abigail said. "Patience, simplicity, how to find joy in the little things." "What do you mean?" Eleanor asked. "You taught me to value a conversation on the porch, the pleasure of cooking for loved ones, the satisfaction of planting and watching things grow, the joy of welcoming visitors well, things I had forgotten in New York City." "I'm glad we managed to teach you something," Thomas said. "Dad, you've always been my teachers. I just took a while to recognize that." 3 years after the reconciliation, Abigail made a decision that surprised everyone. She ran for city council in Asheville. "Sweetheart," Thomas said when she shared the news, "are you sure? Politics is a very complicated thing." "Dad, it's not exactly politics. It's citizenship. I want to help our city in a more official way." "But you already do so much for the city," Eleanor said. "Exactly, Mom. But as a councilwoman, I can create bills that protect and encourage cultural tourism, support other artists, and develop our local economy sustainably." The family discussed the matter for several days. In the end, Thomas and Eleanor decided to support their daughter. "If you think you can make a difference," Thomas said, "we're with you." "But we're not going to run a dirty campaign against anyone," Eleanor said. "We'll present our proposals and let the people decide." "I completely agree," Abigail said. "I want a campaign based on ideas, not attacks." Abigail's campaign was unlike anything the city had ever seen. Instead of traditional rallies, she organized discussion circles in the central square, where she presented her proposals and listened to suggestions from the public. "Folks," she would say, "I didn't come here just to ask for votes. I came to build proposals together with you." During the discussion circles, she heard about many needs she didn't know about. Lack of daycare for working mothers, public transportation problems, the need for a health clinic in the rural district. "I'm so glad you're telling me this," she would say. "I'll include everything in my proposals." Her main opponent was Colonel Douglas, a traditional politician who had been on the city council for 12 years. "Abigail Harrison doesn't understand anything about politics," he would say in his speeches. "She's just a dreamer, an artist." But the public seemed to be looking for exactly something different from the traditional. Abigail's campaign gained momentum, especially among young people, artists, and people involved in tourism. "Auntie Abigail," a 10-year-old girl said in one of the discussion circles, "if you win, will you make a square just for kids?" "What a beautiful idea," Abigail replied. "We'll include that in our plans." On election day, Abigail was nervous but confident. She had run a clean campaign based on concrete proposals. "Sweetheart," Thomas said that morning, "regardless of the outcome, we're proud of you." "Thank you, Dad. It was an incredible experience, even if I don't win." "You're going to win," Eleanor said. "People recognize when someone is sincere." That night, when the results started coming in, Abigail was ahead from the first returns. "Abigail," shouted Mrs. Bloom the florist, "you're winning!" The central square filled with supporters. The celebration began even before the final result. When she was officially declared elected with 65% of the valid votes, Abby climbed onto the bandstand in the town square to speak. "Folks," she said, "this result isn't mine, it's ours. It's the result of a campaign you built with me." The crowd applauded. "I promise I will work every day to honor the trust you've placed in me. And I promise this city council will always be open to hear you." Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Eleanor were in the front row, beaming with pride. "My daughter is a councilwoman," Mrs. Eleanor was telling anyone who would listen. "And she's a councilwoman who's going to make a difference," Mr. Thomas added. In her first year as councilwoman, Abby managed to pass 3 important bills: the Cultural Tourism Incentive Act, the Local Artist Support Program, and the creation of the city's first Sustainable Development Council. "Councilwoman Abigail," said the mayor at a meeting, "you've stirred up more action in this council in 1 year than some council members have in 4. Mr. Mayor, it's because I came here to work, not to protect personal interests." Her projects brought concrete results: more funding for cultural events, technical support for local artists, and guidelines for tourism that respected the environment. But the project she was most proud of was the creation of the first municipal daycare center for children of working mothers. "This daycare," she said at the opening, "was born from a community conversation with all of you. This is how politics should work, listening to the people and working to solve real problems." One of the mothers who benefited approached her after the ceremony. "Councilwoman Abigail, thank you. Now I can work peacefully knowing my daughter is well taken care of." "You're welcome. That's what I'm here for." At home, Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Eleanor followed every achievement of their daughter with growing pride. "Sweetheart," Mr. Thomas said during one of their talks on the porch, "you've become far more than I ever dreamed when you were little." "What do you mean, Dad?" "I dreamed you'd have a good job and be happy, but you achieved that and still transformed our town and helped so many families." "Dad, that was only possible because you gave me a solid foundation of values." "What values?" asked Mrs. Eleanor, curious. "Honesty, hard work, caring for others, and above all, love for family and community." "What a beautiful thing to hear," said Mrs. Eleanor, moved. "And there's more," Abby continued. "You taught me that true success isn't individual, it's collective. It's when everyone around you is better off because of your presence." That night, Mr. Thomas shared a reflection that deeply touched Abby. "You know, sweetheart, today I understand that our 10 years apart, as painful as they were part of the process of you becoming who you are today." What do you mean, Dad? If you hadn't left, you wouldn't have learned about art, about the world, about independence, and if you hadn't come back, you wouldn't have brought all of that here. You had to leave in order to come back whole. That's a profound thought, Dad. That's life, sweetheart. Sometimes things need to break so they can be mended stronger. Mrs. Eleanor agreed. And today our family is far more solid than it was before, because it passed the test of separation and reunion. You're both right, said Abby. Today we appreciate our bond because we know what it's like to live without it. In the 5th year after her return, Abby decided to organize the first Reconciliation Festival in Asheville, an event dedicated to families who wanted to reconcile or strengthen their ties. The idea, she explained in an interview, is to create a welcoming environment where families can talk with the mediation of psychologists, participate in workshops on communication, and hear inspiring stories of reconciliation. The festival was a success. Families from several states across the country came to participate. There were non-violent communication workshops, group therapy sessions, and panels with family relationship specialists. Abigail, said a psychologist who was volunteering, this festival is a brilliant idea. It should be replicated in other cities. That's the plan. We want to turn Asheville into a national reference center for family reconciliation. One of the most moving stories at the festival was that of a family from Ohio. The father and son hadn't spoken to each other in 8 years over a fight about religion. I came here because your story inspired me, the father told Abigail. If you two manage to reconcile after 10 years, maybe we can too. By the end of the festival, father and son were embracing, crying, and asking each other for forgiveness. Abigail, the son said, thank you for creating this space. I almost lost my father because of pride. The important thing is that you found each other again. Now it's about building a new relationship day after day. The festival became an annual event and drew national attention. Psychologists and family therapists began studying the Asheville method as the festival's approach came to be known. Thomas and Eleanor actively participated in every edition, telling their story to other families. Mr. Thomas, a father asked during one of the sessions, how did you forgive your daughter after all that time? Actually, there was nothing to forgive, Thomas replied. She was young and I was stubborn. When we found each other again, we understood that we had both missed each other and that love had never ended. And how do you avoid fighting now? We talk about everything, Eleanor answered. And when we disagree, we remember the years we lost while we were estranged and prefer to find a middle ground. Abigail watched her parents during the talks and felt proud of how they had become examples for other families. At the end of the 6th year after her return, Abigail took stock of everything she had accomplished: a reunited, happy family, a consolidated artistic career, a positive impact on the community, a term as a city councilwoman with approved projects, a book published to national success, and an annual festival that helped hundreds of families. Dad, Mom, she said during one of the conversations on the porch, when I was young, my dreams were much smaller than the reality we live today. How so? Thomas asked. I dreamed of being a famous artist, making a lot of money, having my paintings in major galleries. Today I see that I achieved much more valuable things. What did you achieve that is more valuable? Eleanor asked. I managed to be useful. I managed to improve people's lives. I managed to use my talents not only for my personal success, but for the common good. And you managed to be truly happy, Thomas added. Exactly, Dad. I discovered that true happiness doesn't come from individual achievements, but from meaningful relationships and contributions to the community. Eleanor smiled. And to think it all started with you coming home with a suitcase and a broken heart. Actually, Mom, it all started with a note stuck to the door. If you hadn't left that note, maybe we never would have found each other again. We were never going to give up on you, Thomas said. That note stayed on the door for 2 years, waiting. 2 years? Abigail asked, surprised. 2 years, Eleanor confirmed. We replaced it whenever it rained heavily, but we always kept a note there. Abigail was moved to hear that. You never lost hope that I would come back. Never, her parents said in unison. And I will never leave again, Abigail promised. And we will never let you leave again, Thomas joked. They laughed together, enjoying the lightness that now existed between them. That night, before going to sleep, Abigail wrote in her diary, a habit she had acquired after the reconciliation. Today marks exactly 6 years since I came home. 6 years that transformed not only my life, but the lives of many people. I learned that the greatest achievements in life are not medals you hang on the wall, but smiles you put on the faces of the people you love. I learned that true success is sleeping peacefully, knowing you lived a useful and loving day. I learned that family isn't perfection, it's constant forgiveness and unconditional love. And I learned that home isn't a physical place, it's where the people we love and who love us back are. Today, I am complete. Today, I am happy. Today, I am exactly where I need to be. The next day, Abigail woke up with a new idea, writing a second book, this time focused on the stories of the families who had reconciled through the festival. "Dad, Mom," she said at breakfast, "I want to write another book." "About what?" asked Mrs. Eleanor. "About the families we met at the festival. Real stories of reconciliation that can inspire even more people." "What a beautiful idea," said Mr. Harrison. "You have so many touching stories to tell. And this time, I want you both to be co-authors with me." "What do you mean, sweetheart?" asked Mrs. Eleanor, surprised. "I want you to write chapters about the parents' perspective on family reconciliation. Your experiences can help so many parents who are going through similar situations." Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Eleanor looked at each other, moved. "Sweetheart," said Mr. Thomas, "we don't even know how to write properly." "Dad, you know how to speak from the heart. I help with the words, you contribute the wisdom." "We're in," said Mrs. Eleanor, excited. "This will be our third great adventure together." "What was the second?" asked Abigail. "The first was raising you," said Mr. Thomas. "The second was reconciling. The third will be writing together." They spent the following months interviewing families, collecting stories, and writing together. The process of creating the book as a family was almost as rewarding as the final result. "Sweetheart," said Mrs. Eleanor one afternoon while they worked, "writing has been therapy for me. I'm understanding our own feelings better during those difficult years." "Me too, Mom, and I'm loving hearing your perspectives on things I thought I knew completely." Mr. Thomas, who was initially insecure about his ability to write, discovered he had a lot to say. "Abigail," he said, "I think I have a knack for this. I'm enjoying putting on paper things I always felt, but never knew how to express." The book, Reconciliation, Stories of Love and Forgiveness, was released the following year and became an even bigger success than the first. The novelty was that this time there were 3 authors from the same family. "This is a unique book," said a literary critic during the launch, "because it offers multiple perspectives on the same phenomenon. It's like seeing family reconciliation through a prism." During the launch, which was again held in the central square of Asheville, a journalist asked an interesting question. "Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Eleanor, how does it feel to be authors at 70 years old?" "Fulfilled," answered Mr. Thomas. "I never thought that at 70 I would discover a new talent." "And grateful," added Mrs. Eleanor, "grateful to be able to help other families not go through the suffering we went through." "And do you intend to keep writing? If we have stories to tell, and if they can help people, of course we do," answered Mrs. Eleanor. Abigail watched her parents during the interview and marveled at their transformation. From simple, introverted farmers, they had become confident, articulate people with an important message to share. After the launch, the 3 became sought-after speakers all across the country. Universities, companies, and organizations invited them to speak about reconciliation, family, and personal transformation. "Never imagined that in my 70s I'd be traveling around the United States giving lectures," said Thomas on a flight to New York City. "Life is full of surprises, isn't it, Dad?" replied Abigail. "Do you know what impresses me the most?" said Eleanor. "How our story, which began with so much pain, is today bringing joy to so many people. It's like that old saying," said Thomas, "God writes straight with crooked lines." During a lecture in New Orleans, a woman in the audience asked a question that stirred them all. "If you could go back in time, would you change anything about your story?" Abigail, Thomas, and Eleanor looked at one another before answering. "That's a difficult question," said Abigail, "because our suffering gave rise to our growth. If we hadn't gone through the separation, maybe we never would have learned to value our union so much." "I would change a few things," said Thomas. "I would have been less stubborn. I would have tried to better understand Abigail's dreams from the start." "And I would have been less proud," said Eleanor. "I would have gone looking for her sooner." "But," added Abigail, "even with all the mistakes and difficulties, our story had the right ending. And today we use our experience to help other people. So in the final balance, I wouldn't change anything." The audience applauded, deeply moved. After the lecture, a man approached them. "My name is Paulo," he said, "and for 5 years I haven't spoken to my daughter because of a fight about her boyfriend. Today I decided I'm going to find her." "That's wonderful," said Eleanor. "But remember, arrive with humility, acknowledge your mistakes, and be willing to listen. And above all," added Thomas, "remember that she's your daughter, and that a father's love doesn't change, no matter the circumstances." Paulo left there determined to reconcile with his daughter. 3 months later, he sent them a letter telling them he had managed to reconcile, and that his daughter had even invited her boyfriend, now husband, to meet him. "Daughter," said Thomas after they received the letter, "how many families do you think we've helped reconcile?" "I don't know, Dad, but what matters isn't the number. It's that each family that reconciles multiplies the love in the world." "And lessens the pain," added Eleanor. That year, Abigail was re-elected as councilwoman by an even larger margin than the first time. Her work at City Hall had been recognized by the public. "Councilwoman Abigail," said a voter on election day, "you've changed the face of politics in our city." "How so?" "You showed that it's possible to do politics with love, with honesty, and focused on people's real needs. Thank you. That's exactly what I want to keep doing." In her second term, Abigail managed to pass the creation of the first People's University of Asheville, focused on vocational courses and continuing education for adults. "This university," she said at the opening ceremony, "is for people who didn't have the opportunity to study when they were young, because it's never too late to learn." Among the university's first students were Thomas and Eleanor, who enrolled in a course called Creative Writing for Seniors. "Dad, Mom," said Abigail, "are you sure you want to study?" "Of course," answered Thomas. "If we're going to keep writing books, we want to do it better and better. And besides," said Eleanor, "studying keeps the mind young." Seeing her parents at the university in their 70s was one of Abigail's greatest joys. They were dedicated students, loved by the younger professors. "Professor Teresa," said Eleanor to the literature professor, "I never thought I would enjoy studying so much." "Mrs. Eleanor, you're one of the best students I've ever had. Your essay on family memories was the most moving in the class." Thomas also stood out, especially in the narrative techniques classes. "Professor Arthur," he said, "when I started writing with my daughter, I thought it was just putting words on paper. Now I understand that writing is an art." "Exactly, Mr. Harrison, and you have a natural talent for storytelling. Your stories flow very organically." At the end of the first semester, Thomas and Eleanor were chosen to represent the class at graduation. "I never thought I'd receive a diploma at 75, Thomas said in his graduation speech. "But here we are," Eleanor continued, "proving that dreaming and learning have no age." Abigail was in the audience, crying with pride. That night, during their traditional porch conversation, they reflected on yet another accomplishment. "You know," Abigail said, "when I was in college in Chicago at 20, I sometimes complained about my classes and didn't appreciate the opportunity I had. And we," Thomas said, "value every minute of class, every assignment, every new lesson." "That's the difference maturity makes," Eleanor said. "When you're young, you think you have time for everything. When you're older, you appreciate every opportunity. And it's beautiful to see you two achieving dreams you didn't even know you had," Abigail said. "Actually," Thomas said, "I think we always had those dreams tucked away deep inside. Your coming home and everything that happened after gave us the courage to pursue things we thought were impossible." When she completed 8 years since her return, Abigail organized a special celebration in the central square. She invited all the people who had been part of her journey, artists from the fair, guests from the rural tourism program, families who reconciled at the festival, colleagues from the city council, and professors from the community university. "Everyone," she said into the microphone, "this celebration isn't to mark my 8 years back home, but to celebrate 8 years of collective transformation." The celebration lasted all day. There were artistic performances, a food fair, a photo exhibit of the past years, and many moving testimonials. "Abigail," Mrs. Bloom the florist said, "thank you for believing in my talent when even I didn't believe in it myself." "Abigail," Caleb James said, "you taught me that art can be a profession and that dreams can come true." "Abigail," the mayor said, "you turned our city into a model for all of Brazil." But the testimonial that moved Abigail the most was from a 12-year-old girl who had participated in the art workshops since she was little. "Aunt Abigail," she said, "I want to be an artist just like you when I grow up, but I want to stay here in our city helping other people the way you do." "How wonderful, Isabel," Abigail replied. "And you're going to be an even better artist than me, because you're starting earlier and with more opportunities." At the end of the celebration, the Harrison family climbed onto the bandstand for a final speech. "My dear friends," Abigail began, "when I came back home 8 years ago, I was lost, sad, and without direction. You welcomed me, supported me, and allowed me to rebuild my life. And we," Thomas said, "found in you an extended family. Today we know we are not alone in the world." "You taught us," Eleanor said, "that community is this, people taking care of one another, growing together and celebrating victories as one." "That's why," Abigail continued, "this isn't my celebration, it's our celebration. A celebration of a community that decided to bet on art, culture, reconciliation, and love." The crowd applauded for several long minutes. "And you know what else?" Abigail shouted. "This is just the beginning. We have so many more dreams to fulfill together." The celebration ended with everyone singing the city's theme song together, composed by one of the local artists especially for the occasion. Later, at home, the three of them sat on the porch to process the emotions of the day. "How do you feel?" Abigail asked. "Fulfilled," Thomas said. "I feel like I've lived a complete life." "And grateful," Eleanor said. "We're grateful for the chance to have lived through all of this." "And don't you think it's time to rest a little?" asked Abigail. "You've already done so much." "Rest?" laughed Mr. Harrison. "Abigail, we're just getting started. We have the next book to write, college to attend, the festival to expand. Not to mention," added Mrs. Eleanor, "the grandchildren we hope you'll give us one day." Abigail laughed. "Hold on, one thing at a time." "Sweetheart," said Mr. Harrison, growing serious, "may I ask you something personal?" "Of course, Dad." "Don't you miss having a family of your own, a partner, children?" Abigail thought for a moment. "Dad, I do have a family. You. And I have hundreds of adopted children all across town. As for a partner, if someone comes along who shares the same values and dreams, they'll be welcome. But I don't feel like I'm missing anything." "That's good," said Mrs. Eleanor, "because what matters is that you're happy, no matter how your life comes together." "And I am very happy, Mom. Completely happy." That night, Abigail wrote in her diary, 8 years, 8 years of a life I never could have imagined. Today I understand that happiness is not a destination you arrive at, but a path you travel. And the best path is the one traveled with the people we love, doing the things we believe in, contributing to a better world. Tonight I go to sleep knowing that I am living exactly the life that was made for me. And tomorrow I will wake up ready for another day of building, together with my family and my community, an even more beautiful future. In the 9th year after her return, Abigail received an offer that made her reflect deeply on her next steps. The state government offered her the position of Secretary of Culture for Pennsylvania. "Abigail," said the governor during the meeting, "your work in Asheville has drawn national attention. We want to replicate your methodology across the entire state." "It's an honor to be asked, Governor, but I need some time to think." "Of course, but know that this would be an opportunity to multiply your impact across hundreds of towns." When she got home, Abigail was conflicted. It was an incredible professional opportunity, but it would mean leaving Asheville and spending less time with her parents. "Mom, Dad," she said, "I need to share some news and ask for your opinion." She told them about the government's offer. "Wow!" exclaimed Mrs. Eleanor. "State Secretary, how proud we are." "Sweetheart," said Mr. Harrison, "this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But it would mean moving to Chicago, working much more, having less time to be with you." "Abigail," said Mrs. Eleanor, "don't make decisions based on us. We're fine, settled, surrounded by friends. You need to think about what's best for your career and for the common good." "Mom, but I already said I don't want to be far from you again." "Sweetheart," said Mr. Harrison, "Chicago isn't New York City. It's a 3-hour drive. You can come every weekend. And besides," added Mrs. Eleanor, "imagine how many families you could help reconcile across the entire state." Abigail realized her parents were right. Her mission had grown beyond the limits of her town. "Are you sure you'll be okay without me?" "Abigail," said Mr. Harrison, "we raised you to live your own life. If that life includes a bigger mission, we can only be proud." "And we wouldn't be losing you," said Mrs. Eleanor. "We'd be sharing you with more people who need you." After a week of reflection, Abigail accepted the position. "Governor," she said, "I accept, but with 2 conditions." "Which are?" "First, I want to implement the program gradually, starting with towns that have potential similar to Asheville." "Perfect." "Second, I want to come home every weekend. My family is my priority." "No problem at all." The farewell from Asheville was emotional. The entire city gathered in the town square for a farewell ceremony. "Folks," said Abigail, "I'm not leaving. I'm expanding our work. Everything we've built here will serve as a model for other cities." "Abigail," said the mayor, "you will always have a home here. This city is yours forever." "And you will always have a daughter at the state's Department of Culture," she replied. Thomas and Eleanor insisted on accompanying her in the move to Chicago. "Sweetheart," said Thomas as he helped unload the boxes at the apartment, "I'm so proud to see you holding such an important position. Dad, remember, this position is a tool for doing good. If one day it stops serving that purpose, I'll walk away. And we'll support any decision you make," said Eleanor. In her first year as Secretary of Culture, Abigail managed to implement the Pennsylvania Reconciles program in 20 cities across the state. The program included reconciliation festivals, support for local artists, and the development of cultural tourism. "Secretary," said one of her aides, "the program's results are exceeding all expectations." "That's great, but remember, it's not about numbers, it's about transformed lives." Every weekend, Abigail went back to Asheville. She took part in the town's activities, visited her parents, and recharged emotionally. "How is Chicago treating you?" Eleanor would ask every Friday. "Challenging but rewarding. And how are you two?" "Busy," Thomas would answer. "We finished our 2nd course at the university and started another one. Besides that," Eleanor added, "we're writing a 3rd book, just the 2 of us this time." "Really? About what?" "About how to reinvent yourself after turning 70, said Thomas proudly. Abigail was amazed by her parents' energy and creativity. They had found a second youth through their studies and writing. In her 2nd year as secretary, Abigail expanded the program to 50 cities. The Pennsylvania model of culture and reconciliation began to attract attention from other states. "Secretary Abigail," said the Minister of Culture during a visit to Pennsylvania, "we'd like to talk about expanding your program to the entire country." "Minister, I'm honored. But first I want to consolidate the program well here in Pennsylvania. Quality before quantity. A wise decision. When you feel ready, you'll have our full support." That night in Asheville, Abigail told her parents about the conversation with the minister. "Sweetheart," said Thomas, "have you ever thought that you could become Minister of Culture one day?" "Dad, let's not get ahead of ourselves. One step at a time." "But it's a real possibility," said Eleanor, "and it would be wonderful to have a minister who truly understands culture and people. Would you support me if that happened?" "Always," they said in unison. "But with one condition," Thomas added. "What?" "That you never forget where you came from, or the people you love." "Impossible, Dad. You two are my anchor." In her third year as secretary, something happened that had a profound effect on Abigail. During one of the reconciliation festivals, she ran into someone from her past. "Abigail?" said a man as he approached her during the event in Gettysburg. She turned around and saw Nathaniel, a college classmate she had been in love with 20 years earlier. "Nathaniel, what a surprise! I couldn't believe it when I saw that it was you organizing this event. I read about your work in the newspapers." "And you? What are you doing here?" "I'm a family therapist. I came to see this festival because I've been working with reconciliation for years." They talked for hours. Nathaniel had gotten married, had children, gotten divorced, and was now single and fully dedicated to his work with families. "Abigail," he said, "I've always admired your determination, but now I see that you've achieved something much greater than we ever imagined in college." "Thank you, Nathaniel. And you, are you happy with your life?" "I am. The divorce was difficult, but today I have a good relationship with my ex-wife and my children, and I love my work." "That's good. Can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. You never got married?" "Never had children," Abigail smiled. "I didn't get married in the traditional sense, but I built a very special family with my parents and my town. As for children, I have hundreds of them scattered across Pennsylvania." "What a beautiful answer. And are you happy that way?" "Completely. And you?" "I'm doing well, but I confess that sometimes I miss having a partner who shares the same professional ideals." They exchanged contact information and began corresponding regularly. It was a friendship based on mutual respect and common professional interests. "Abigail," said Eleanor when she told her about the reunion, "he seems like an interesting person." "He is, Mom, but we're just rekindling an old friendship." "And what if it's more than friendship?" asked Thomas. "Dad, if it is, it'll be welcome. But I'm not looking for anything. I'm happy as I am." "That's good, sweetheart. That's the best position, to be complete and open to whatever life brings." In the following months, Abigail and Nathaniel began collaborating professionally. He brought technical knowledge in family psychology, and she brought practical experience in community organizing. "Abigail," said Nathaniel during a work meeting, "our partnership is producing incredible results." "It's true, theory and practice complement each other very well. Have you ever thought about formalizing this partnership?" "What do you mean?" "We could create an institute for family reconciliation, a place dedicated exclusively to research and practice in this area." Abigail found the idea fascinating. "It would be something innovative in the United States." "Exactly, and we could expand to other Latin American countries." They presented the proposal to the state government, which approved it immediately. "Secretary Abigail," said the governor, "this is another brilliant initiative. It will have the full support of the state." The Pennsylvania Institute for Family Reconciliation was inaugurated a year later, with headquarters in Chicago and units in 10 cities across the state. "Abigail," said Nathaniel on Inauguration Day, "we've created something that will help families for decades." "We did it, Nathaniel. Teamwork." "That's true. By the way, can I confess something?" "Of course. I'm falling in love with you all over again, not just with the Abigail of today, but with the incredible woman you've become." Abigail was surprised, but not uncomfortable. "Nathaniel, you're a wonderful person, and I admit I have feelings for you too, but I need time to understand what I feel." "There's no rush. What matters most is our professional partnership and our friendship." That night in Asheville, Abigail talked with her parents about Nathaniel's declaration. "How do you feel about him?" asked Eleanor. "Confused," admitted Abigail. "I really like him, I admire his work, we get along well, but I'm afraid of complicating our professional partnership." "Sweetheart," said Thomas, "you can't make decisions based on fear." "What do you think of him?" "From the few times we've met him, he seemed like a good man," said Eleanor. "Intelligent, dedicated, and he treats you with great respect. And most importantly," added Thomas, "he shares your values and life goals." "Do you think I should take the risk?" "Sweetheart," said Eleanor, "you've always been brave in following your professional dreams. Be brave in following your feelings too." 3 months later, Abigail decided to give the relationship with Nathaniel a chance. They began dating, remaining professional at work and affectionate in their personal lives. "How is it going?" asked Eleanor after a few months. "It's going very well, Mom. Nathaniel is a great companion, understanding, and he shares my passion for social work." "And does he understand your dedication to family?" asked Thomas. "Perfectly. In fact, he really wants to get to know you both better." "How about bringing him over for lunch at the farm?" suggested Eleanor. "Good idea. I'll invite him for next weekend." When Nathaniel got to know Thomas and Eleanor better, it was love at first sight on both sides. "Mr. Nathaniel," said Thomas during lunch, "thank you for taking such good care of our daughter." "Mr. Thomas, she's the one who takes care of me. I learn something from Abigail every day." "And thank you," said Eleanor, "for supporting her work and for understanding that family is important to her. Mrs. Eleanor, family is the foundation of everything, and you've built a beautiful family." Late in the afternoon, as they walked through the farm, Nathaniel said to Abigail, "Now I understand where your strength comes from. You have an incredible family." "Thank you, and they really liked you. Abigail, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Could you be happy if we built a family together, without giving up taking care of your parents, of course?" Abigail stopped walking and looked at him. "Nathaniel, are you talking about marriage?" "I'm talking about life together, however it works best for us. It's something I can consider, but it would have to be here, close to my parents." "I was hoping you'd say that. I've already talked to my children and they'd love to get to know Asheville." "You would do that? Leave Chicago to come live here?" "Abigail, home is where the people we love and the work that fulfills us are. With you, the Institute, and this beautiful community, I would be completely happy here." That night on the porch, Abigail told her parents about her conversation with Nathaniel. "Daughter," said Thomas, "would you like to get married?" "I think so, Dad, but only if it's to add to our lives, not to complicate them." "And it seems like it would add," said Eleanor. "He seems to understand that you come as a complete person, with family, work, and commitments." "That's true. He doesn't want to change me. He wants to join our life." "Then follow your heart," said Thomas. 6 months later, Abigail and Nathaniel married in a simple ceremony in the town square of Asheville. The whole town took part in the celebration. "Abigail," said Nathaniel during the vows, "I promise to love not only you but your family and your life's mission. I promise to be your partner in every way." "Nathaniel," Abigail replied, "I promise to share with you not only my love, but my dreams, my challenges, and this beautiful life I've built." Thomas and Eleanor were radiant. Seeing their daughter happy and fulfilled was everything they had ever wanted. "Now we are 4, said Eleanor to Thomas during the celebration. "And soon maybe we'll be more," replied Thomas, thinking of Nathaniel's children who would soon be moving to Asheville. Nathaniel's children, 15-year-old Phoebe and 12-year-old Oliver, adapted perfectly to life in the small town. And Thomas and Eleanor gained the grandchildren they had always wanted. "Grandpa Thomas," said Oliver one afternoon, "can you teach me how to plant?" "Of course, my grandson. We'll start with a garden that's all yours." Phoebe became interested in art and in the family stories. "Grandma Eleanor," she said, "can you tell me what life was like before Abigail came back?" "Of course, my granddaughter. It was very sad, but it all served as a lesson." A year after the wedding, Abigail received news that moved her deeply. "Abigail," said Nathaniel, arriving home excited, "we have news." "What?" "The Institute has been invited to present our work at the World Family Therapy Conference in London." "Really? Our methodology is going to be presented internationally?" "And that's not all. They want us to help implement similar programs in other countries." Abigail could hardly believe it. Her small story of family reconciliation had become a globally recognized methodology. "Dad, Mom," she said that night, "our story is going to be told in Europe." "We're so proud," said Thomas. "From a family feud to an international method." "It's proof," said Eleanor, "that God can turn any suffering into a blessing." Abigail continued as Secretary of Culture for 2 more years, until she was invited by the President of the Republic to take on the Ministry of Culture. "Minister Abigail," said Nathaniel when she told him about the offer, "you deserve it. It's the recognition of all your work." Would you support me? It would mean living in Washington, D.C., much more traveling. Abigail, I'll support whatever decision you make. And Washington, D.C. isn't the end of the world. I can coordinate the institute from here and travel when necessary. And the kids and my parents? The kids are at the age where they should see the world, and your parents are strong and surrounded by friends. Besides, you can come back several times a month. Abigail accepted the position and became the youngest Minister of Culture in the country's history. In her inauguration speech, she said, "This ministry will be dedicated to using culture as a tool for unity, reconciliation, and social transformation. Our mission is to bring art and culture to every corner of the country, especially where it can make the biggest difference." During her 4 years as minister, Abigail implemented the National Cultural Reconciliation Program in every state. Thousands of families benefited from the program's festivals and initiatives. "Minister," said a journalist during an interview, "how do you evaluate the results of the national program?" "By the numbers, they're excellent. 1,000 cities served, 100,000 families directly benefited. But what matters most are the personal stories of reconciliation we receive every day." "Do you keep in touch with your family during such intense work?" "Absolutely. My parents, my husband, and our children are my foundation. Without them, none of this would make sense." At 48, after 13 years of national work, Abigail decided to return to Asheville for good. "Nathaniel," she said, "I want to come home. I want to finish my career where it truly began." "I was waiting for you to say that," he replied. "I miss our simple life in town too. And my parents are over 80 now. I want to cherish every moment with them." Abigail's return to Asheville was celebrated like a municipal holiday. The whole town gathered to welcome her. "Everyone," she said in the central square, "I left here as a state secretary and I return as a former minister. But what matters is that I'm coming home to stay." Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Eleanor, now 84, were physically frail but lucid and happy. "Daughter," said Thomas, "what a joy to have you home again." "I'm not leaving again, Dad. This is where I want to grow old with you. And we want to see our grandchildren grow up here too," said Eleanor. Phoebe, now 20 and studying art at the university, decided to make her senior thesis about Abigail's artistic journey. "Stepmom," she said, that's what she affectionately called Abigail, "your story inspires a lot of people my age." "Why, Phoebe?" "Because it shows that you can succeed without losing your roots, without forgetting your family, without setting aside your values." Oliver, 17, decided he wanted to study psychology, to work with the Family Reconciliation Institute. "Dad, stepmom," he said, "I want to continue your work." "What a joy, son," said Nathaniel, "but are you sure? It's a profession that demands a lot emotionally." "I'm sure. I grew up seeing the good you do for families. I want to be part of that." Abigail settled back into the farm, set up a new studio, and returned to painting regularly. Her art had evolved greatly over the years. Now her canvases told complex stories of reconciliation, family love, and personal transformation. "Abigail," said an art critic who visited her new studio, "your current painting is much deeper than the one from the beginning of your career. It's because now I paint with life experience, not just talent. And what's the difference? Talent creates beauty. Experience creates meaning. When the two come together, art that transforms is born." In the 20th year after her initial return, Asheville had become a world model of sustainable cultural development. Delegations from several countries visited the city to learn about the methodology. "Abigail," said the mayor, he was already the third since she had returned, "our city has become a national cultural heritage site because of the work you started." "No, Mr. Mayor, because of the work we built together." Thomas and Eleanor, at 89 years old, still actively participated in the life of the city. They had written 5 books together and had become a national reference in active aging. "Abigail," said Thomas in one of the conversations on the porch, "I never imagined I would live so long and so fully." "Why do you think that happened, Dad?" "Because we found purpose. When you came back, we all discovered that we still had a lot to offer the world." "And because we reconciled not only with each other," added Eleanor, "but with life." We forgave the past and embraced the future. Nathaniel, now 55 years old, had become an international reference in family therapy. But what made him most proud was the family he had built with Abigail. "My love," he said one night, "thank you for accepting me into your life and your mission. Thank you for making my life even more complete." Phoebe had graduated in art and opened a gallery in Chicago specializing in Brazilian rural art. Oliver was in his final year of psychology and was already interning at the Family Reconciliation Institute. "Stepmom," said Phoebe during a visit, "have you ever thought about how special our family is?" "What do you mean?" "We are a blended family that worked out. You and Dad found each other in maturity. Grandpa Thomas and Grandma Eleanor reinvented themselves after 70. Oliver and I got a stepmom who is our inspiration. Our story is beautiful." "That's true, Phoebe. We are proof that family isn't just genetics. It's a daily construction of love and respect." The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this story of family reconciliation. Do you believe that love and forgiveness can really overcome any hurt? Leave a comment telling us about your experience with family reconciliation, or simply saying how this story made you feel. If you know someone who needs to hear a message of hope about family, share this video. And don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart.